So here we have it all breadboarded up. It's in, I think it's A-stable multi-vibrator mode essentially is what the 555 is in at the moment. And I've altered the schematic that came in this, this book that I was reading, ICC 555 Timer Project, and added a variable resistor at resistor B. So that's the one that's shunted by the diode that's in there. So I'm by no means an expert, and I'm sure many people may be able to tell me that I'm explaining this wrong or that I understand it incorrectly. But as I understand it, the clock frequency on the 555 is controlled via pin 2, which is on the left hand side there. And the capacitor that's in this diagram charges up and discharges, and that cycle, that the charging and discharging cycle, is what gives the pin 2 on the 555 its clock frequency. And because I've put a variable resistor or a potentiometer in series with RB there, it means that I can alter that clock frequency, and that alters the frequency that's coming out, the PWM cycle that's coming out of pin 3. Now there's much more to a 555 than what I've just explained, and I advise you to read up on it. I'm not an expert, so I won't go too much into it. I just want to show you a useful application for this kind of thing in projects that don't use Arduinos and you're working with higher voltages. It means that it's able to go less than 50%. This doesn't actually go up to 100% exactly. It goes up to around 98% of on time, I think. But it means that when I adjust the potentiometer, I can dim those LEDs to almost all the way off. I think it's still got a certain amount on. The variable resistor, or the potentiometer I've got, is a bit crappy, so it displays a bit of flickering. But the reason I want to do this is when these are fully on, you can see the Kodak mark on the back of the pictures, which isn't ideal. So if I turn it down to a brightness level where with the eye you can't see those markings, but I know that the pictures are still on, I want to do it's a more desirable result, and it means they're drawing about 100 milliamps, which is a lot less than close to an amp for all of them to be fully on. Now if I just switch it off at the plug, you'll be able to see the difference. So with them off, it's a lot less impactful. So with this PWM circuit, it's certainly a lot better than using an tiny 85 or something like that, because the 555 will run on the 12 volts that the LEDs use, so I don't need to add any extra voltage regulation. Let's have a look at the scope and see what happens when I'm turning this pot, and we'll see how the output changes. Hooked up to our scope now, and if I mess around with the potentiometer, currently we're set on 2 milliseconds per division. I'm using a 10 times probe, so that's 1 volt per division in the vertical, and we're on channel 2 at the moment. So you can see here, if I just fiddle around with this position a little bit, line those up, we're on about 2.5 squares here, so that means it's about 4.5 milliseconds, and that's the on time. So let's just mess around with the potentiometer a little bit. It's bouncing around a little bit. So once we get to this point, it's still there. That is fully on, that's the maximum. So we're looking at very close to 100% duty cycle there. So if I turn it all the way down, there we go, they are completely off now, almost. It won't go completely off, unfortunately. We can still see, if I change this here, so that's 10 milliseconds. So we can still see we've got some activity there, so it's not turning all the way off. So that was only a quick project just to do some PWM at 12 volts instead of using an AT-Tiny85 or any other microcontroller that wouldn't deal very well with 12 volts. So the 555 is a really useful little chip to use. It doesn't involve a lot of extra components. In fact, that's just capacitor, resistors, and a potentiometer, and that's all you need. So it's a very useful chip. There are loads of other projects in this book. I picked it up from the library, and it's got loads of things like car alarms, loads of audio projects, lots of timer projects. The 555 is a timer after all, and it's just a nice little read. So don't forget that the internet isn't everything, and books still have useful things in them. Plus you can look at the diagrams and stuff, and it's all in one place. Anyway, thanks a lot for watching. It was emotional.